The morning sun rose gently over the small mountain village, painting the roofs and bamboo fences with a soft golden glow. The sound of roosters crowing mixed with the laughter of women selling vegetables, the clinking of coins, and the scent of freshly steamed rice cakes drifting through the air. At the far corner of the market, Huyen laid out her small mat. On it were neat bundles of morning glory, a basket of tomatoes, and a few homemade bamboo crafts she had worked on the night before. Maya, her little daughter, sat beside her, swinging her legs and carefully arranging the vegetables with her small hands. "Mom," Maya said softly, "these tomatoes are so red today. People will buy them all for sure." Huyen smiled, wiping a bead of sweat from her forehead. "Let's hope so, my dear. If we sell everything, we can buy some notebooks for you." The market was kind and familiar. Huyen had built her quiet life here after so many storms. The villagers respected her, a hard-working woman raising her daughter alone, never complaining, always gentle. But that morning, something in the air shifted. A silence spread through the crowd as an old woman in a brown scarf approached slowly, leaning on her cane. Her eyes were sharp and full of resentment. People whispered to each other in low voices. "It's her, Huyen's ex-mother-in-law." Huyen froze. Her hands went still over the tomatoes. For a second, the world seemed to stop spinning. The old woman's footsteps were slow but heavy, and when she reached the stall, she looked down at Huyen with cold contempt. "So it's true," she said harshly. "You really are living here, selling vegetables like some beggar." Huyen's lips trembled. She stood up quietly, lowering her head. "Mother, please, not here." "Don't call me that," the old woman snapped. Her voice was sharp enough to make Maya flinch. "You destroyed my son's life, and now you dare to show your face in public." The crowd began to gather. Curious faces, murmurs, whispers. Maya clutched her mother's shirt, her big eyes filled with confusion and fear. Huyen tried to stay calm, forcing her voice to remain gentle. "I don't want any trouble. Please go home." But the old woman only grew louder, her words cutting deeper with every sentence. "How dare you act innocent? You ran away, took the child, and now you pretend to be the victim. You ruined our family." People turned to look. Some frowned, others whispered. Huyen stood silently, her face pale, her body trembling. Maya's little hands gripped tighter. She didn't understand everything, only that her mother was being hurt. In the middle of the noisy crowd, Huyen's eyes glistened with unshed tears. She turned slightly, shielding Maya behind her back. The market, once filled with warm chatter, now felt heavy and cold. And then, as the old woman's anger grew, Maya's small voice began to shake. A quiet cry that would soon echo through the crowd. The air at the market grew heavier with every harsh word from the old woman. People began to gather closer, their faces a mix of pity and curiosity. Some whispered, "Poor Huyen," while others simply watched, frozen by the sight of a child trembling behind her mother. Huyen tried to stay calm. Her hands shook as she picked up the basket of tomatoes that had rolled off the mat. "Please stop, Mother," she said softly, her voice barely holding together. "I have nothing more to say. Please go home." But the old woman didn't stop. Her voice rose higher, cutting through the chatter of the market. "You still call me mother, after what you did to my son? You think working here, selling vegetables, can wash away your sins? You're shameless." Huyen's lips trembled. She turned her face away, trying to hide the tears forming in her eyes. She didn't want Maya to see her cry. Not here. Not again. But Maya could feel her mother's pain. Her small hands tightened around Huyen's arm, her little body shaking. She looked up at the angry woman in front of them, the woman who once used to visit their home, who once held her as a baby. Something broke inside her tiny heart. "Don't scare my mother anymore," Maya suddenly cried out. Her voice cracked but echoed loudly through the crowd. "Don't hurt my mother. Uncle D is coming. He's coming soon. He won't let you hurt her again." The words spilled out with all the fear and courage she had. Her tears streamed down her cheeks, her little face red and trembling. Everyone went silent. Even the old woman froze for a moment, staring at Maya, the small child standing between her and the woman she despised. "Maya," Huyen whispered, kneeling down quickly to hug her daughter. "Shh. It's okay, my love. Don't cry. Everything's okay." But Maya wouldn't stop. She clung to her mother, her voice shaking as she repeated, "Uncle D is coming. He said he would protect us. He'll come soon." The crowd's eyes softened. A few women looked away, tears forming in their eyes. One of them muttered, "Poor child. She's just protecting her mother." Huyen held Maya tightly, her heart aching. It wasn't the first time Maya had cried like this, but every time she did, it tore deeper into Huyen's soul. The old woman looked down at the trembling pair. Her anger faltered for a moment, replaced by something that looked almost like guilt, but it quickly disappeared beneath pride and bitterness. She turned her gaze away, muttering, "Such a disrespectful child, just like her mother." Then she took her cane and walked off, her steps unsteady, leaving behind silence and the faint sound of Maya's sobs echoing through the market. Huyen stayed there, holding Maya close to her heart, while the villagers slowly returned to their stalls, still whispering about the scene they had just witnessed. The sun climbed higher, but for Huyen, the morning had turned painfully cold. By the time Dee's motorbike reached the edge of the village, the sun was already dipping behind the hills. The sky was painted with orange light, and the wind carried the faint scent of guava and smoke from the cooking fires. He had been driving for hours, his shirt dusty, his hands sore, and his heart beating with one thought only: Huyen and Maya. As he passed the market road, he noticed something unusual. People whispering, heads turning toward him. An old woman selling herbs called out softly, "You're Huyen's friend, right? The kind man from the south." Dee slowed down, his heart tightening. "Yes, I am. What happened?" The woman sighed and shook her head. "You should hurry home. Huyen had a hard morning. Thuck's mother came again. She made a scene at the market. Poor little Maya cried so much, shouting that you were coming to protect them." For a second, Dee couldn't breathe. He gripped the handle of the motorbike tighter. Maya's voice, her innocent courage, echoed in his mind. "Uncle D is coming." Without another word, he started the engine again and rode faster, his chest burning with both anger and sorrow. When he reached the small bamboo house, the light from the oil lamp glowed softly inside. Through the open window, he saw Huyen sitting on the floor, holding Maya in her arms. The little girl had fallen asleep, her face still stained with tears. Dee parked the bike quietly and stepped inside. The wooden floor creaked under his feet, and Huyen looked up in surprise. "Dee," she whispered, her eyes widening. "You're back." He nodded, trying to smile, but his voice was thick. "I heard what happened. Are you okay? Did she hurt you again?" Huyen shook her head quickly, but her lips trembled. "No, not really. It's just words. I'm fine." Dee's fists clenched. Words can hurt more than anything. He walked closer and knelt beside Maya, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. She cried for you, Huyen said softly. She told everyone you were coming. And somehow, I think she believed it so much that it made me strong too. Dee looked at her. The woman he had missed every night. The one who had carried pain with grace. He didn't speak. He simply reached out and took her hand. For a moment, neither said anything. Only the sound of crickets outside and the faint rustle of bamboo filled the air. Finally, Dee whispered, "No one will hurt you again, Huyen. Not while I'm here." Huyen's eyes filled with tears, but this time they weren't from fear. They were from relief. She nodded slowly, pressing her forehead against his hand. Outside, the wind passed gently through the trees, as if carrying Maya's earlier words through the night. Uncle D is coming. And now, he truly had. The next morning dawned misty and quiet. Dew clung to the leaves, and the smell of damp earth filled the air. Huyen was preparing breakfast when a sharp knock echoed on the bamboo door. Her hands froze. She knew that knock, firm, impatient, and cold. Before she could move, the door swung open. Standing there was her ex-mother Law, stern-faced, dressed in a brown jacket, eyes full of bitterness. "So, this is where you've been hiding," the old woman spat. "You took my son's child and ran away like a thief. Do you have no shame, Huyen?" Huyen stood still, her lips pale but her voice steady. "I didn't take anyone. Maya is my daughter. I only took her away from pain." The old woman's eyes narrowed. "Pain? You mean your own foolishness. Thuk was your husband." "Was." Huyen interrupted, her tone trembling but firm. Her hands clutched the edge of the table, but she did not step back. "Your son beat me, humiliated me, and threatened our child. I left to protect Maya." The woman's face twisted with anger. "Lies. He told me you ruined his life. That man you live with now, what's his name? D. Another mistake. Another shame." At that moment, the sound of a motorbike roared outside. Dee's voice came from the yard, calm, deep, but edged with anger. "Enough." He stepped into the doorway, tall and dusty from work. His eyes locked on the old woman. "If you came here to hurt them again, then you're the one with no shame." The old woman turned sharply toward him. "And who are you to interfere in family matters?" "I'm the one who saw what your son did," Dee said quietly but firmly. "I'm the one who found Huyen bruised and terrified. And I'm the one who promised Maya she'd never have to cry that way again." The air grew tense. The old woman's lips parted, but no words came. For the first time, her eyes flickered with something like doubt or guilt. Just then, a small voice broke the silence. "Grandma." Maya stood at the corner, clutching her doll. Her eyes were red from crying, but her voice was clear. "Please don't scare my mother anymore. Uncle D is here now." The old woman looked at her, really looked at her, and her expression softened slightly. She saw not rebellion, not defiance, but fear and love in that little face. Dee gently walked over and placed a hand on Maya's shoulder. "She's just a child," he said quietly, "and all she wants is peace. If you have any kindness left in your heart, leave them in peace." The old woman turned her gaze away, breathing heavily. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then she muttered, "Fine. You want to live your own life. Do it. But don't ever come back to us." And with that, she turned and walked away, her footsteps fading down the dirt path. The house fell silent again. Huyen leaned against the table, Trembling as if the strength had just left her body, Dee stepped forward and gently wrapped his arms around her. "It's over," he whispered. "She's gone." Huyen closed her eyes, tears spilling silently. "Thank you, Dee. You really came. Just like Maya said." Dee smiled faintly. "She never lost faith. Neither did I." Outside, the sun began to break through the mist, casting a warm glow over the little bamboo house. A new morning, a quiet promise that peace had finally come. That afternoon, the rain fell softly over the village. Drops tapped gently on the roof, as if the sky itself wanted to calm what had just happened. Inside the house, everything was quiet. Only the faint crackle of the small fire in the clay stove could be heard. Huyen sat near the window, her hands wrapped around a warm cup of tea. Her eyes looked distant, but softer now, no longer filled with fear. Maya leaned against her, holding her mother's arm, while Dee repaired a broken stool in the corner, his movements slow and steady. After a long silence, Maya whispered, "Mom, will that old lady come again?" Huyen gently stroked her daughter's hair. "No, my dear, she won't. She just didn't understand. But someday, maybe she will." Dee looked up from his work and smiled faintly. "You were very brave, Maya. You protected your mother with your heart. I'm proud of you." The little girl's face brightened. "Because I knew you'd come, Uncle Dee. I told her not to scare Mom anymore. You always come." Huyen's eyes glistened. She turned toward Dee, her voice trembling slightly. "She really believes in you. And so do I." Dee put down the tools and sat beside them. The sound of the rain surrounded the three of them, wrapping them in peace. He took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of the home he had long dreamed of. Not walls or roofs, but love, trust, and belonging. "We've all come a long way," he said softly, "from fear to hope. Maybe fate was harsh before, but it gave us this moment, together." Huyen nodded, resting her head gently on his shoulder. Maya giggled quietly between them, holding both their hands. Outside, the rain slowed, and a faint rainbow appeared above the rice fields. The air smelled of wet earth and new beginnings. In that quiet, simple afternoon, they realized something important. The world may still be uncertain, but love had found its way home. And no storm, no past, and no cruelty could ever take that away again.